All right, we're on with Steve Bowles. You're on.
Yeah, so today's webinar is going to be about the pain associated with fax and how we can, informed decisions can help automate inbound fax processing, really make it an efficient, productive process. So a little bit about the company. Been around since 1994. We focus on document automation solutions, both for the IBM iSeries world, as well as the open platform world, Windows, Linux, things like that. The whole goal is to focus on core functions within an organization that can really help you improve efficiency, standardization, help you integrate your business processes with systems that you already have existing in your network. You can find out more at www.informeddecisions.com. With that said, let's go ahead and kick off some chat about fax. So, you know, the first response typically we get is, isn't fax dead? We've all heard it before. Fax has been dead for the last 20 years. But if you take a peek at these statistics, you can see that there's tons of active fax machines out there, and companies still really rely on that technology. One of the primary reasons, it's a very easy, simple way to send. There's no training required. If you can dial a phone number, you can send a fax. And really, for a lot of organizations, it's become a habit. It's the way they do business. They walk up to the fax machine, they send, or they walk up and retrieve that fax that someone has sent to them. So not only by this stat can you see that there's a huge environmental impact, but there's also an impact on cost, efficiency, and productivity for all different sizes of organizations, from small, let's say, one-person law offices up to large organizations that are receiving, you know, many, many faxes per month. So fax traffic is still very prevalent in many industries, like the ones you see here, typically the ones that are mostly concerned about privacy and confidentiality, okay? Fax is a point-to-point technology. There's really no intermediary. So when you send a fax, it's going from point A to point B over the phone line. Now, with some server technologies that are out there, it can actually get routed via the internet. But the perception out there is that it's a very secure transmission medium. Now, if you take a step back, how many of us have actually found someone else's fax on the fax machine or on the floor next to the fax machine? Once you create a paper copy, you've now got a new replica of that confidential information. So there just has to be a better way to process inbound faxes, and we'll get to that here in a minute. So let's take a deep look at the inefficiency of fax as a transmission method and a method of exchanging information. Many organizations still use the old school fax method of printing paper. We all know that paper is extremely inefficient. Anytime you touch paper, it's a very manual process that requires the movement of that paper document around the organization. And in many cases, folks are rekeying that information into a line of business system, okay? If it's a healthcare claims organization, they're receiving those claims, hand-keying information into the claims system. If it's a purchase order that an accounting department's receiving, they're taking that purchase order and hand-keying it. So it's very, very inefficient. A lot of companies have moved to digital fax, okay? So they receive the fax as a PDF in a file or folder. They receive it in their email, or they use a fax client. Even those folks, even though they've moved to the digital method of receiving faxes, there's still a lot of inefficiencies. In many cases, they're using numerous applications to process those faxes. They open the fax in a fax client, then they email it to the person. The person in accounting saves it to a folder, then they open it, then they process it. So it's still a very, very painful process. And like I said, typically requires the use of multiple applications to process those, okay? In some extremes, and it's funny that I say this, but I've actually seen some customers that receive digital faxes, print them, sort them, and then rescan them into the system, okay? So there's a lot of inefficiency out there, and those folks could really use some help. Now, continuing to add to the fray, the way we fax is really a mess, and it's a legacy way of doing business. You really have no control on the sending device. Some folks still have those old fax machines, very poor quality. Some faxes, there's two methods of transmission, standard and fine, that can affect the transmission quality. There's different cover sheets that folks use. Every organization has a different one, right? Okay, they'll use that different fax cover sheet. Sometimes if you're faxing between organizations, folks will send an entire stack of documents in a single fax transmission, okay? An example might be a college financial aid office where a student faxes in the 7 documents that are required for financial aid, okay? So how do you split them? Once again, the print and sort and rescan or reorganize type of function, all right? So a lot of inefficiencies, and one of the key inefficiencies is how do you then route that fax to the person that needs to get it in the organization? So in summary, obviously fax is a very inefficient way to transmit documents. There's a huge loss of productivity, and there's really no standardization. Every fax is different from a format and a layout. So that leads us to the whole goal and the whole premise of this presentation is if you've got a fax and it's part of your industry, we can give you a way to process those faxes that's new and much more automated, okay? For those industries, fax is going to be around for a while, so you just have to figure out a way to process those efficiently. The goal really is to intercept that fax digitally, keep it that way, and give you the tools that will let you organize, process and split or merge fax pages together, process the fax to improve the quality, so remove speckles, borders, streaks, really get a high quality image that you can use as a document throughout your organization. And the real goal is to create a single flow of information into the organization so you can standardize and automate the flow of those documents and use it for other purposes as well. Okay. Now that I've given you an overview of the problem and how we can help from a solution, let's go ahead and give you an idea of one way that you can process faxes. Let me go ahead and close that presentation. And then let's go ahead and open our application, which is called SciCapture. So SciCapture is a product that can be run either automatically in the background or it can be run interactively. We do have some clients that auto-process faxes. They come into the fax lines, get processed, and auto-routed without anyone ever seeing the interface. But one of the key advantages of this interface is that it helps you overcome a lot of those problems with lack of standardization. So let's go ahead and kick off a capture process. And as I mentioned, there's a number of ways we can have those faxes automatically ingested into the system. In this example, I'm going to say that faxes are getting dumped into a directory, and I've got some samples here. And I'm going to go ahead and kick off and import these faxes that may have been dumped by my fax machine into a directory. So you'll see as the faxes come in, they each get brought in individually, but they're brought in as a batch. So just from an efficiency perspective, rather than having to process each fax individually, I can consume a large amount of them, bring them into the system automatically, okay? Now, as I go through my workflow here, or my capture workflow in SciCapture, one of the benefits is I've got a document preparation workspace. So in this workspace, I can take a peek at the faxes. If I wanted to merge two of them together, I could do that. If I want to split pages, let's say that this organization sent in 2 documents in a single transmission, I can just hit a hotkey and split it. So I can drag and drop, I can delete cover pages that maybe I don't want as part of the document. I've got the ability to redact confidential information. I can crop, I can do all types of things in this interface that really give me a lot of power as I'm doing this process, okay? So now that I've made sure that the structure of my fax documents is correct, let's move on and let the product do some magic here. So in this example, this is a medical example of prior authorizations that are being sent for care. So there's three different types. There's a traditional one, there's one that focuses on hearing, and then there's a dental prior authorization. So the product here is actually going to look at the text on the inbound faxes and automatically determine the type of fax that I've received. So we'll let the product go through and do its preparation and its classification. You can see here that it's automatically determined that this is just a plain prior auth request. Now when I hit tab, I've got the ability in this example to harvest information from the document. So I can do this automatically like I did for the type of the document, but I've also got point and click capabilities. So I can go through and quickly point and click and enter information about the document. So this one was classified as a hearing and audiological prior authorization. So I can come in here once again, highlight on the name, and the last one was auto-classified as a dental request. Okay, and once again, I can come in and enter some information. Now, note, these fields over here, I can have as many of these as I like. There's a number of ways we can fill them in. I showed you the automated method. I showed you point and click. We can hand key. We can have drop downs. So as you can see, I've captured the faxes, prepared them, entered information really quickly about 3 separate faxes, and then I've also got the ability to QA or perform a quality assurance step once I'm done. Now this can be done by the same user or a different user. So if I had a supervisor or somebody that would overlook the results and make sure that they're correct, they can come through, check the structure of the faxes, they can check the data to make sure it's all correct, and you can see here I've got a row for each individual document and the information. If there was an error, I could correct this. Now when I click done, I have a number of options. So with Side Capture, I can release these documents and the data into 60 plus different content management systems or formats, okay, and those are built into the system. Things like SharePoint, Laserfiche, DocuWare, all different types of systems are supported. I can also just release the data. So if I wanted to just release this information into a database for prior authorization requests, I could do that as well. So we have organizations that use this for everything from processing purchase orders and putting the data into their accounting system, folks that are processing inbound claims documents, you name it. You can, the sky's the limit, and we can automate just about any fax process with this system, okay? Now that's just a quick overview of the whole fax process and how it can work and just some bits and pieces. Note that everything I've showed you has the ability to be customized, okay? So you can customize this process. You can customize how the documents are input. You can have some steps that are automated, some that aren't. You can have multiple people working on this process at the same time. So as different batches of faxes come in, you can have 10 inbound fax processors that are working with the faxes and moving them through this capture workflow, okay? So that's a quick overview of how we can use a capture process to automate the pain within any type of fax business process. If you have any questions, you can go to informeddecisions.com and drop us a note through the Contact Us interface. And there's a ton of information on the website as well. Thank you for your time, and that's the end of this presentation.